Welcome to Triple Play Fantasies Fantasy in 15. Today we're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and what a disappointment they were. Number one seed in the East during the regular season, losing to the Hawks in 7 games in the Eastern Conference semifinals. They blew a 26-point lead in one game, lost game 7 at home. I think everybody's now questioning whether you can trust the process or not. And I think Simmons, Embiid, Tobias Harris, that dynamic isn't going to work. Now, a lot of people are saying that Ben Simmons is the one that has to go. And there is some validity to that. But I'm going to say why Joel Embiid is the one that should be traded. So first, we're going to look at the contract situation. Joel Embiid has 2 years, $64 million left on his contract and is 27 years old. That's a much easier contract to trade for than Ben Simmons, who has 4 years, $140.2 million left on his contract. So that's going to be easier for a team to swallow, especially if they want to choose one of their players. Now, we're also going to look at their value. Joel Embiid's value is probably the peak right now. He played through a torn meniscus in the Eastern Conference playoffs. He was the front runner for MVP before going down with an injury midseason. Ben Simmons' value is probably his lowest. He shot the ball 7 times in the fourth quarter of the playoffs and was benched when they needed a bucket. Now, I'm now going to look at Joel Embiid's injury history because this isn't his torn meniscus in the playoffs isn't the first thing that's happened to him. So he partially tore his meniscus in his right knee. This season, he also had a left knee bruise, which caused him to miss 10 games. In 2020, he had a torn hand ligament, which caused him to miss 15 games. In 2019, he had a sore left knee, which caused him to miss multiple games. In 2018, he had an orbital fracture. In 2017, he had meniscus surgery on that same left knee. So now both of his knees have a torn meniscus in them at one point. In 2014 and 2015, he didn't even play the season because of foot surgery. And that kind of goes to my next point of looking at big men in their NBA career. Now, big men, when you can get a really valuable big man, that really does change the dynamic. But their careers don't happen to be as long. I look at Yao Ming, who retired at 30 years old after 8 NBA seasons because he had chronic feet conditions. I look at Georgie Murasan, who played 6 seasons before having to retire due to bad knees. Greg Oden, another person that played about 4 to 5 NBA seasons before retiring at 26. Joel Embiid has played 5 seasons so far, 7 total if you're talking about the 2 that he sat out. So you figure his career isn't going to be as long as a guard or as a forward who has less body weight to carry around. Now we go to the fact that Embiid right now is loved by Philly. But last year, during 2020, he was actually booed in February, and he embraced it. So the fans have already turned on him once. I think the thing about Philly fans is they're very short-minded. Right now, Simmons is the enemy before Embiid was the enemy. So I think you have to take emotions aside. Embiid is the most valuable player, probably at his peak value. You're not going to win with the roster construction you have right now. So you need to trade him while his value is at his maximum, and so that you can still contend for years to come.
Oh, my. There's a lot to unpack there, E. They're not in winning contention, but they were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. You got the guy who finished his second in the MVP, and we want to let him go instead. The one thing that you did point out there that I kind of was like, ooh, is the 2 years left on the contract. That time is ticking. And with the player movement in the NBA, you kind of want players locked up. Ideally, that 4 years that Ben had was like, oh, we have a young player and he's going to stay with us. But he hasn't improved much since the rookie year. I don't know what the hell Ben Simmons is thinking on how he's playing. It seems like he just kind of forgot how to play basketball, especially in these fourth quarters. He did not shoot a single shot games 4, 5, 6, or 7. Even when it was spoon-fed layups, you gotta make a move here. There's always questions about how are they going to filter this team around 2 guys that aren't great shooters and one guy that literally can't shoot at all. 34.2% from the free throw line on a minimum of 70 free throws taken is the worst free throw percentage of all time. I think that kind of strains some of these relationships. He gives you everything you need on a defensive end. So let's find a team that is just offensive powered, and maybe we can balance this Embiid action. I hear you about the injury concerns. It's very concerning, but I feel like Embiid is the guy that can put you over the edge and can win you a championship if he is healthy, mixed with some other players, where Ben is like, if he's the guy on the team, I think that they can be competitive, they can be good, but I don't see them winning playoff series, especially when he's refusing to shoot. He's almost unplayable in those fourth quarters. And at this point, there's like no looking back. You have to make a move. And yes, his value is low, but you got to try to piece together whatever you can with Joel Embiid clearly in his prime years. We see Seth Curry just balling out of control. Thibault could provide you with some of those same defense. I mean, he was second team all defense. He can provide you with some of those things that Ben is doing. And you go out there and you get a really solid point guard that can really score the ball and really lead you in the fourth quarter. So that's what I'm really looking at, is where can I find Ben Simmons at home that I can get somebody that's going to come in return and close out some of these games in the fourth quarter, because Embiid was really, really good closing them out in the regular season, but they just blew it. There's no reason that the Atlanta Hawks should have beat this team on Philadelphia's home court in Game 7. So you say trade Embiid, but who do you send him to? Who are we getting him back in return that this could possibly make sense?
Yeah, so I want to touch on a few points. Ben Simmons is a career 59.7% free throw shooter. So once again, it's not good, but you look at the series he had, or the playoffs, I view that as an anomaly. He's also 24 years old. You can work on his shooting, but he does everything else so well. He's probably the best defender in the league. He can probably cover all 5 positions. He can rebound. He averages over 8 for his career, around 8 assists a game, around 2 steals, around 1 block. You need to view him as a center, because the stereotypical center traditionally hasn't been able to shoot jump shots or free throws. But he does so many other things that are valuable. But you talk about Ben Simmons now versus at the beginning of the season, you're going to get pennies on the dollar of what you got before. So yes, this team should have made it, but Ben Simmons was part of the reason why, because he played 58 of the 72 games this season. Obviously had a little bit of time with his own back issue, but he's someone that's been healthy for the most part. So when Embiid does take back-to-backs off, or if he does get hurt, Simmons is kind of the enigma of the team. Now, I have 4 trade scenarios that I think you can trade Joel Embiid to that will still make the 76ers contenders for years to come. The first is, and I know they just lost to this team, you would do a sign and trade with Atlanta where they give you John Collins, Bogdanovich, Cam Reddish, and a future first round. You have John Collins, who is a big man that can shoot the 3. Atlanta wasn't going to be able to re-sign him anyway. Bogdanovich stretches the floor as well. Now, if you are going to build around Simmons, the other 4 players need to be shooters, because once again, he's going to be viewed as your center. Cam Reddish is a young building block, gives them a little bit more depth, and their first round pick. The salary cap matches up. The second one,
I will say, Morey loves stars, and I think that he loves Embiid, so that would be a hard push. But if I'm Atlanta, or I'm Philly, I'm asking for DeAndre Hunter to be packaged in that deal, or Herter. Like, I want another one of those young core guys.
I don't think they'll trade Herter. They might trade DeAndre Hunter instead of Reddish. You could probably substitute that young player in. The next is a trade to the Trailblazers for CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, a first and a second. The salary cap would match up on that. I think both teams need to change up the dynamic. For Portland, you have Damian Lillard probably playing with the best complementary piece he's ever had. I think that fills the need at center. And if you're the 76ers, you're getting a guy that can score. I think that's what we saw in this series when they needed a bucket. They didn't have anyone to go to. Tobias Harris was not that guy. CJ McCollum will be that guy. He's also a ball handler. And you get a big body to replace Nurkic in addition to the first and second round pick. The salary cap matches up for both.
if I'm Philly, because I'm getting rid of Ben. I'm trying to somehow get Ben Simmons over there and get Dame back, or maybe a package that includes even McCollum. Like at this point, we are trying to go all in. But if you get Embiid and Lillard on the same team, that is the most scariest thing ever. I think that it would take like more than just one first round for this guy. Like I don't know how many they had. I know they gave up a couple to get Covington, but I want multiple first round. I want all the swaps. I need everything if you're going to steal and pry the second leader in the MVP race.
And by the way, these first two trades also include George Hill to match up for salary cap reasons. Now, if Portland has more picks to trade and Philadelphia can squeeze it, certainly, but this is just kind of the framework. The third one is Joel Embiid and George Hill to the Indiana Pacers for Miles Turner, Karis LeVert, a first and a second. You have a defensive center in Miles Turner that kind of fits the Philadelphia framework. You have a great interior defender with Miles Turner and probably the best off-ball or on-ball defender in Ben Simmons. Karis LeVert is once again that scorer that you're looking for. And Indiana has a lottery pick this year and giving them that second round pick. And if you're the Pacers, you build around Domantas Sabonis, Malcolm Brogdon, and Joel Embiid. I think Embiid and Sabonis can work together because Sabonis isn't your traditional big. He can shoot the ball. He can handle it. He can pass as well. And once again, I think both teams need kind of a change up.
They run that offense through him though, and he can't really shoot the three. He can shoot mid range. But the Philly, that the fit there, I like those players around Simmons. I also would want to pick 13. You give me Corey Kispert, which is a perfect fit with Ben Simmons, another shooter, and you got Curry. I mean, but we're still talking about a team that would be good, not title contenders, and they still are in that title contender window. Curious to hear your fourth.
So the fourth is Joel Embiid to the New York Knicks.
The Big Apple.
For R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Mitchell Robinson, and 2 first-round picks. Ooh. Now, if you're the 76ers, once again, I think we saw the depth hurt them a little bit. You're getting a young star in R.J. Barrett. Emmanuel Quickley looks like a great point guard to build around. Mitchell Robinson is once again that defensive anchor if you choose not to re-sign Dwight Howard, and you get 2 first-round picks. So I really think you're building around depth. You have some young stars, and you're adding to that defensive framework because if you do need Simmons, or if you do get Simmons, I think you need to stay with a defense-oriented team. Tobias Harris is an above defender as well.
Wow. In mentioning Tobias, I feel like he's forgotten in all of this. Because of how bad Ben Simmons played, Tobias, who's also a max guy and someone that Philadelphia prioritized over, Jimmy Butler, who's actually the guy they really needed. And if it weren't for a boink, 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 boink shot by Kawhi Leonard, who knows, that team probably wins the NBA championship and they retain him. So it's kind of crazy the fortunes of the 76ers. I know I'm playing the pass role, but you think about Miles Bridges, that was the perfect fit. Mikal Bridges, my bad, not Miles from the Hornets. Mikal Bridges, who's a homegrown kid, went to Villanova championship. He's over there in the Suns, and he's the perfect 3-and-D component that this team needed. They whiffed on that, and if I'm a Philly fan, I'm upset. There's a reason why these guys are angry, and they're trying to fight everybody else. But we got to get rid of Ben. I keep the guy that I think that can carry us over the edge. Ben Simmons is a promising young player. He's still 24. He still makes a big factor as far as winning is concerned. But this faltering in the playoffs, I got to move on from him. A couple places in mind. My brother brought this up to me, but I think this is a perfect trade for both teams. The Nets don't need any help with scoring the basketball. Give me Kyrie for Ben Simmons. Perfect fit. Kyrie can lead. I hear there's rumblings in that organization that they're
what happens when Kyrie decides to go MIA or not talk to the media? He also has ties with Kevin Durant, which is part of the reason why I think he's been able to get in check. Philly fans, we saw what Kyrie did in Boston, how they turned on him. I think Philly fans are even worse. But I think regardless of who needs to get traded, Simmons or Embiid, Philly does need to make a change in order to continue trusting the process. So let us know in the comments what you think. Who should be traded? Some potential trade possibilities. Until next time, I'm Eric. Coach James will catch you on the next Fantasy in 15.